What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Raw and Uncut New York Sports, where we talk about the Mets, the Nets, and the Giants. It's week 1 of the NFL, and the Giants have played their first game of the season against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, this is probably like the best and worst time to be on social media and look at all these, football shows on TV, because you're going to get a bunch of overreactions. Everything's going to be an overreaction. Whether your team won, they're probably going to the Super Bowl. If they lost, they're probably going to go 0-16, right? But with these New York Giants, if you watched my 2020 preview of the Giants, the one thing that I really stressed was I just want to see improvement of the team, okay? Week to week, there has to be improvements. Okay, because then we'll know where this team is headed. And with every game, whether you win or lose, there's positives, there's negatives to take from it. I think this game with the Pittsburgh Steelers, number one, it was a very good matchup because the Steelers have a good defense against a very young offensive line, a different offensive line that has not played together in a while. So, I'm just going to go over a few positives and negatives that I came away with from this Monday night game. And I'll start off right there at the offensive line. Look, the Steelers have Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. Those guys combined for about 26 sacks in 2019, 0 sacks on Monday night. TJ Watt did have a interception. I'll get to that one later, but I think this offensive line really held its own, protected pretty well, I'd say. Andrew Thomas looked pretty decent for his first NFL start. All those guys up front, I think, did a decent job. Okay, overall, I don't think it was as bad as maybe some expected. So the fact that we were able to, not allow Dupree and Watt and the rest of those guys, they did record 3 sacks, but those 2 main guys were going to be a problem. So good to see that. The other thing on the offense, with Danny Jones, I think that first interception, both interceptions could have, been avoided, I guess, right? But the first one, TJ Watt kind of looked like he was coming all the way. Then he fell back and Jones threw it right into Watt's hands. And the second interception, you could say that he should have thrown the ball to the sidelines. As time goes on, Jones is going to have to make better decisions on the field. And that maybe could have fell into that category. But Dupree's a good, he's a good pass rusher, and he got there early enough and able to hit his hand, and the ball just, popped up in the air. So, I think the second interception could have been avoided. The first one, good defense, and I go back to, this is a good matchup for the Steelers because they blitz a lot. They show you different looks, and it's kind of good for the Giants offense to see this, and the coaches, you know what I mean? Because it'll show what some of the strengths and weaknesses are with this matchup with the Steelers. The Steelers have a good defense. I think it's a well-respected defense, and it should be. But there's a lot of things that the Giants could take away from this when they get into film and all that stuff. So, Jones, 2 interceptions. He finished with 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 for 41. Not a bad night, but those interceptions led to 9 points. So, again, we got to protect the ball. Obviously, Everybody was looking for Danny Jones to fumble. He did not fumble the ball. Okay, so we can stop. We can stop with the Danny Jones fumble count in 2020. All right, he didn't fumble the ball, so that's always a good thing. But again, interceptions will kill you along the way. So now he is part of a positive that I have, and that's 19 plays, 19 plays, 8+ minute drive in the third quarter by the Giants. Actually, before I get into that one, I do want to say that, and this kind of leads to a positive, okay? Usually when a team is winning, like the Giants were right before halftime, okay, right before the Steelers scored that touchdown, right? When you're winning a game like that and you give up a touchdown right before halftime, like the Giants did to the Steelers, it's got a way of sometimes deflating the team that gave up that touchdown. Okay, so right before the half, the Steelers get a touchdown by James Washington, which, by the way, this play, there's a lot of people on social media saying, the effort was great and this and that. Effort is great. It's not going to win you games all the time. And the effort on that play, tackling James Washington, was very poor. That's a very poor effort. I mean, that guy should have been down and tackled right at the goal line. There's no way, no excuse. James Washington is not this fucking huge guy. He's fairly small. So that was poor effort. But I thought that play right there, giving up that touchdown right before halftime, was a play that I thought was going to absolutely deflate this team. Because again, I go back, this is a young Giants team, right? And to give up a touchdown like that, like Big Ben really, marched down the field and was able to put some points on the board right before the half. So instead, this was a very perfect way to use, bend but don't break. And that's kind of what it was, because the Giants allowed that touchdown, and we come out in the third quarter, and the Steelers get the first possession in the third quarter. So right there, it was like, oh shit, Pittsburgh's just gonna march down again, down the field, and even if they don't get a touchdown, they'll probably get 3 points. And actually, the Giants were able to force the Steelers to punt to start the third quarter, and then the Giants put together a really impressive drive, which was a really good drive that ended, in one of those two Jones's interceptions. They had 13 straight no-huddle plays, 11 for positive yards, 1 incomplete pass, and of course the interception in the red zone by Danny Jones. But it was impressive. That was definitely a positive, because you can see, and this wasn't even, that drive wasn't on a good Saquon Barkley night. Okay, that drive was really Danny Jones making the plays, the receivers getting some space, no drop passes, of course 1 incomplete pass, but everybody really did their part. The offensive line looked really good on that drive, and I mean, fucking 19 plays, 8-minute drive is is a drive that could wear down a defense, but coming away with no points is really really no excuse for. I mean, you at least want to come away with 3 points. And then the turnover, it was like it almost worked, it just deflated the Giants instead. And it gave the Steelers, they ended up bending, not breaking on that drive. And then it ended up really changing. It ended up changing the momentum of that football game So again, the team can't put together a good drive like that and come away with no points. That just can't fucking happen. I mentioned Saquon Barkley. Obviously, he didn't have a great game, but if we thought that the Steelers or any fucking team going forward is going to allow the Giants to beat them with Saquon Barkley, we're mistaken big time, because like I mentioned one video back, Saquon Barkley's a home run hitter. So they got to contain that guy. They're going to make Danny Jones beat the defense every game. So that's why I was really impressed with what I saw with the offensive line, because I'm expecting teams to play the Giants a little differently, really shut down Barkley, and just have Jones beat them. Let's see. Teams are going to, and it makes sense to do, right? I mean, I wouldn't want, if I'm the opposing team, I don't want Barkley beating us, because I know as soon as he touches the ball, he can fucking take it to the house every time. So, I don't fault the defenses. They're playing the Giants, and I think they're going to play the Giants that way for most of the season. Obviously, the other glaring issue with Barkley is the pass blocking. I thought it was going to be interesting to see how the offensive line and Barkley were going to pick up blocks against this Steelers defense, and I feel like the offensive line held its own, did pretty well, and Barkley didn't do so hot. So we have issues there. I'm pretty sure that is something that is being talked about internally with the Giants, and it will be addressed, I'm sure, because we can't fix one problem in protecting Jones and then, have another hole somewhere else. So those two issues definitely have to be fixed, because if our offensive line is going to get better and is going to be doing their job, then that is rewarding to Jones, but we can't have our fucking running back, whoever it is, not block. So I expect to see Dion Lewis. Of course, I'm kind of like a Wayne Gallman guy. I want to see him get a little more burn on this Giants team, but I think we'll get Dion Lewis on those third downs and those pass protection plays a little more often. So we'll see what happens there. I really enjoyed watching Slayton just really go to work, get nice separation from the secondary, 2 touchdowns, really good game from Slayton. We still need to see more from Ingram. Obviously, he didn't play so well. He also had a few missed blocks, poor blocking, and all that shit is just going to affect the running game. But again, this was good for the Giants to see against a defense like the Steelers. Because when they play teams that run similar defenses to the Steelers, they can kind of expect what's coming. Other than that, I move over to the defense, and I was really impressed with Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. I think our big dogs up front are going to have a good season. Dexter Lawrence with 1 sack, 4 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 quarterback hit. Leonard Williams, our $16-17 million guy, 1 sack, 5 tackles, 2 for a loss, 2 quarterback hits. I think Leonard Williams is going to have a good season. So I mentioned I like how he plays, and I like what I saw from the front line for the first game. Tomlinson had a pretty quiet night, not much of a factor. I don't think that will be the case for the whole season. I think Williams and Dexter Lawrence will demand a lot of attention from opposing offensive lines. So that should open up things for Tomlinson. Blake Martinez had a really good game. Really impressed with how he looked. He had 8 tackles, 4 assisted, and it led the Giants in that category. So Bradbury had a nice pass deflection. Actually, he had 2. He forced another fumble. Really good game from Bradbury, actually. This is a really, again, I know I keep repeating myself, but you have to take it into account. This is a very young Giants team that has not played together for so long, and they did as best as they could against Juju and the rest of the Steelers receivers. The Steelers are a team that has played together. They're under the same coach for some years now. So, the scoreboard may not have looked pretty. I think the game was a lot closer than what the score says. But if you've really watched the game, the Giants, I believe they held their own the best way possible. So we'll see going forward what the Giants do to adjust. We got the Bears coming up in week 2. I think this is a good game for us to really break out and sack the quarterback. Trubisky is not a great quarterback in my eyes. This is a Bears team that has really struggled. I believe we've beaten them the past couple times. So I expect the same to happen in week 2. I don't think the Giants will or should lose this game against the Bears, but we'll see what happens. Another thing that I can take away from this game from Monday night is, the Giants really left some points on the board. Obviously, that 19-play drive and then a muff punt by the Steelers. No reason the Giants shouldn't have come away with a touchdown there instead of a field goal on that Steelers drop punt. But those are, again, we can't let opportunities like that, scoring opportunities, go to waste. So we're talking about, a handful of points that we just left out there. So that's all I have for the Giants. Look, there's a lot of people that are going to overreact on this Giants loss, but it's going to be a learning curve for the coaches, for the players. As long as we can get better every week, I think the results will improve. And I don't overreact. If you're a New York Giants fan, don't overreact, because there are positives to take away from this game. I think we have ourselves a good leader that has a voice in this locker room, and they will get through to the players. So things will look up, things will get better. It's just gonna take some time. All right. So you got to learn how to crawl and walk before you can run. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Catch me on Twitter, RAW, UNCUT, New York Talk. Until then, keep it raw and uncut.